everyone, welcome back to my channel, Unicorns and Typewriters. My name is Skylar and I'm back today with another exciting YouTube video. So in today's video, I wanted to do another video with some travel content. I hope you all are excited to hear more about my experience living abroad in England. I thought I would share with you all my opinions on what to pack if you are moving to England. This could also be super useful if you are just going to visit England. But for me, I had to pack to go live in England for an entire year while I studied for my master's degree and lived abroad. I hope that some of you might find this helpful. My first recommendation is one that might seem a little bit obvious, is make sure you bring a really good raincoat with you. It does rain quite a bit in England. I feel like it doesn't rain like as much as people will lead you to believe, but it does rain quite a bit and the air is always quite moist in England, so it is worth having a really decent raincoat. I went out and got a really nice, like, longer raincoat before I went, so it would cover more of my body, you know, like a long raincoat with a hood, and it was big enough that I could layer other coats underneath of it. I recommend doing that. Don't just get a tiny little dainty raincoat that can hardly fit over your sweaters. It's not a good plan. The other thing I'm going to talk about is that layering is really important in England. So make sure you're keeping that in mind. If you do need to go out and get yourself a raincoat, think about getting one a little bigger so that you have plenty of room underneath of it. Now, on the same vein as talking about a raincoat, you should also be sure to bring shoes with you that are waterproof or that you don't mind getting wet. I think that's really important in England because even though it's not raining all of the time, the ground will be wet a lot of the time too because of the amount of rain. So you will find that if you bring shoes with you like suede or something that you normally wouldn't really want to wear in the rain, you will probably not end up wearing them very much. So I don't really recommend it. Not everything I own is waterproof, but I didn't bring anything that was like suede or like something really expensive and nice that I knew I wouldn't want to get rained on, because I also knew that I would be doing a lot of walking. So it's obviously up to your personal taste as to what kind of shoes you feel like you need with you for the year. But I was there more for the experiences and traveling and exploring. And if that is the case, I highly recommend bringing a pair of sneakers, bringing a pair of hiking boots. And if you're gonna bring a different pair of boots, make sure that the other pair of boots you bring, even if they're more of a fashion pair, that you are okay walking with them, getting them wet, possibly getting them muddy. I just brought shoes that were easy to clean and easy to dry out if they did get wet. And I think that was a really good choice, and I would highly recommend it to anyone else to keep that in mind when you're packing your shoes. Just a little hot tip, it also is a huge space saver to pack your socks in your shoes. So just roll up as many socks as you can and just shove them in your shoes. Your shoes are already going to be taking up the amount of space they're going to be taking up in your suitcase. You might as well take advantage of that and use the space for even more things. As I had mentioned before about layers, I did find when I went to England that it was not as cold as I thought it would be. So I feel like in media, like television and movies, we get this idea that England is very cold, and I feel like British people will also tell you that it is very cold in England. That might be true for you too if you are coming from a more tropical area, if you're coming from the south in the US or anywhere more southern in the world, but not so much for those of us who are from the north in the United States. If you're from the Northeast like myself, if you're from the Midwest, or if you're from the Northwest in the US, you will not be impressed by the cold. You will especially not be impressed if you are Canadian. There is just this weird misconception that it's super cold in England, but average winter weather is actually around like 40 degrees, which in the States, in the north anyway, in the States is nothing. I lived in upstate New York for a year while I was in undergraduate college, and it was like negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit there. So going to a place where it's 40, really isn't that bad. Regardless, I would highly recommend packing layers. Think layers when you are packing. So when I was packing for an entire year, I of course was packing for every season. I knew that England generally has the same seasons as us, but I was under the impression that winters were very cold and that I should bring, as well as summer clothes, some lighter layers for spring, lighter layers for fall. I should also make sure to bring some heavy sweaters for winter. That is where I went wrong. You will not need your heaviest sweaters if you live, like I said, anywhere in the north in the US, in Canada, anywhere more northern in the world. You will not need your heaviest sweaters to live in England. You will in fact not want your heaviest sweaters. You would be much better off bringing layers. So bringing shirts and cardigans that you can wear over them. If you can bring like t-shirts, even long sleeve shirts, and then cardigans, you can always layer and layer and layer. But I would highly recommend that because you will want to take some of the layers off at different points in the day. I did find while I was living in England that it would be kind of cold in the morning, it would get really warm in the middle of the day, and then it would get kind of cold at night again. So in England, you're gonna want those layers though, so you can take them on, put them off as needed throughout the day. If you wear a hot, heavy sweater, you're just gonna be sweating for at least a third of the day. I can't stress that more. Make sure to bring layers and don't pack your heaviest clothes. In the other direction, I would say these summers in England were hotter than I thought they would be. We got like 80, 90 degree weather while I was there in the summer, and because there oftentimes is not air conditioning in school-related buildings, in cafes, in my apartment that I lived in, no AC, so I would definitely recommend bringing really light clothing for the summer, but still having some layers with you just in case. I think that's like my best recommendation is go from the lightest clothes you have to like layers. Don't go all the way up to the heaviest clothing items you own. So as far as regular, like everyday clothing, I would highly recommend bringing casual and staple pieces. So England is much like the States. Students wear jeans, sweatpants, t-shirts, sweaters, depending on the weather, leggings. It's really not that different. It's pretty casual. If you're a student, you don't have to worry about like dressing up more than you normally would in the States. I know I read a lot when I was getting ready to go that like sweatpants and hoodies and things like that aren't as popular in England and that people don't dress as like sloppily for school, but to tell you the truth, I don't think that's necessarily true. I definitely saw people walking around in sweatpants. I'm not the type of person that really likes to wear sweatpants around, so I really only wear sweatpants in my home to begin with, so I was fine with that. But I do recommend bringing like comfy clothes with you to wear in your own flat or apartment. And I also, recommend just packing these staple, important items that you're gonna wear on a daily basis. Bring some t-shirts, bring some things that are just comfortable and that fit you well. Bring your favorite pairs of jeans. And then once you get there, you can always get the more fashion statement type pieces. The sizes in England are different from the sizes in the States. So if you're like, I think it's like 2 sizes up or something like if you're a 10 in the States, I think you're like a 14 in the UK. Don't quote me on that. That's not exactly right, I don't think, but it's something like that. So the sizes are marked like larger than in the States. Like you'll have to kind of look at it like you're sizing up a size or 2. I would recommend trying on the clothes the first time you go shopping in the UK to try to figure out exactly where your size is, but mostly it correlates like that. And so you will not have a hard time finding fun little fashion pieces. There are stores that are super cheap like Primark, and then there are some cool stores that you can get stuff that's a little more unique to England, a little more upscale. It'll be a little more expensive like Topshop and Super Dry. But if you're looking for really cheap stuff, then I would recommend like going to Primark. Their stuff is super cheap. They also have really great pajamas and very cheap pajamas at Primark. So if you're like myself and you decided to cut down on the amount of pajamas you were bringing to make more room in your suitcase, then you can find the cheapest, actually really nice quality like cotton pajamas at Primark. Just a fun little tip there. Now, something I would not recommend bringing is large bottles of shampoo, lotion, any type of toiletries. You know, if you have a specific toothpaste you love, you might want to bring a tube or two. But if you're not specific to any of those types of items, I would say just bring travel sized and buy full size when you arrive. Especially if you are like me and you are coming to live for a year, then you will not be able to pack enough to really last you the whole year. And you want to use that packing space for clothing. You're packing everything you need for a year usually people do like 2 suitcases for these things. That's what I did. I did 2 suitcases. You can have family members ship you things, but I wouldn't really recommend relying on that because it gets really expensive. So I would highly recommend just bringing travel size toiletries and buying them once you get there, because in England they have a lot of the same brands that we have in the States. It's pretty rare that you won't be able to find the brand that you're looking for. Because everything is in English, it will be really easy for you to find a replacement. If you do need to find a different product, you'll still be able to read the ingredients and kind of find something that matches up to what you're looking for. The only thing I would recommend bringing is if you wear makeup, I would recommend bringing at least an extra of the makeup that you really like, because that's something that can take a little more time and effort to find something that matches your skin tone, doesn't irritate your skin, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, if you are just visiting, you only really need travel-sized items. And if you are visiting for a longer period of time, I would probably still recommend doing the same thing, because why waste space in your suitcase or weight? Now, something a little frivolous that I would do differently if I were to have a do-over or if I were to move abroad again is to bring more little keepsakes. So this is just more really a suggestion. Obviously you don't need this, but I would recommend bringing a few little keepsakes and decor items that you can put up. And whether that is photos, which I did bring some photos with me to England of family members, friends, fun events that you've been to that you enjoyed, that bring you joy to look at. It's always nice to have something like that to hang up on your walls or put on your desk so that you feel less lonely, because moving to another country can be kind of isolating at times. And I would also recommend, you know, if you want to bring something like a little figurine, a little stuffed animal, something that just kind of brings you comfort and makes you feel at home. If I were to do it over again, I would maybe even bring like one of my own like light blankets that wouldn't have taken up too much weight in the suitcase, just to have something like that of your own that you can then use to decorate your place and make it feel more like home. It can really help if you're the type of person who can feel homesick. I don't usually get homesick, but it definitely felt kind of sad that I didn't bring more items with me that I could sort of put out in my apartment to make it feel more like home. So I think if I went back, I would do that from the very start. I did bring a couple things back with me when I went home at around the 6-month mark. So I definitely kind of remedied that situation, but I would recommend doing it from the get-go. I would also recommend, just if you have space, bringing some fun American snacks. Mostly, I would recommend bringing them to share with your friends. It's a really great icebreaker and a really fun thing to do. If you make friends in England, or if you're a student like myself and you make friends with the people in your class, to one day bring them fun American snacks to try. I brought some into one of my classes, so all my classmates got to try some American snacks that they had seen on TV but had never actually tasted before. And that's just so fun, and it's a great way to make friends. So I would highly recommend, if you have room or if you can squeeze some into your carry-on, bringing some things that just aren't very common in England. They don't really have graham crackers in England, so that's a big one. In fact, bringing the ingredients to make s'mores is super fun, because they don't really do s'mores in England, probably because they don't have graham crackers. And so if you bring graham crackers and marshmallows, because they do have marshmallows in England, but they are very different. They're probably healthier. They probably have a lot less chemicals and weird things in them. But American marshmallows are very different textured, a lot like squishier, and they also will puff up in, you know, in the fire the way you want them to for s'mores, whereas British marshmallows I don't think would do as well. So I would really recommend bringing the materials for s'mores. You could either bring the chocolate or skip the chocolate and just get chocolate in England. However, chocolate can be a little expensive in England. So if you can get yourself some cheap Hershey's chocolate, it's always fun to throw it in. Also, British people do enjoy trying Hershey's chocolate, even though they will for sure tell you that Cadbury is much better, and I don't necessarily disagree with them. Personally, I like dark chocolate overall, so basic Hershey's chocolate doesn't really do it for me either. But yeah, American candy is always a really big hit. You can easily look up lists of candies that are hard to find in England and just throw a couple in your suitcase or your carry-on and bring them with you so you can share with your friends, or so that you can have a little bit of comfort, you know, from home too. Sometimes it's nice to just have something from the States that you can't really get in England. In the UK, people they really get very excited about flaming hot Cheetos. So I do recommend, if you really want to thrill people, bring a little bag of flaming hot Cheetos to share with your friends. A lot of them will say they've seen it on TV but never really gotten to try it, and they just find it really fun and interesting to get to try foods that they've seen on TV. The same way that we do. I was definitely very excited to try certain foods in England that I had only seen in British TV shows and movies. So besides that, I mean, I think you can basically use common sense. I would recommend bringing as many pairs of like underwear and socks as possible. It's just something you don't really want to have to shop for. I would not recommend bringing sheets or towels. Those you can easily get there. I didn't bring any sheets, towels, bedding. I bought pillows, sheets, towels when I got there. If you are like me, you might not know what size bed you're going to have, so it's impossible to bring sheets anyway. But I did consider packing a towel or two just to save money when I first got there, but it's just really not conducive to the amount of space you have when you're packing for an entire year. But yeah, I think that is about it. If I ever think of more, I can always do another video on this, but I hope that maybe that's helpful and it gives you some ideas. I know when I was getting ready to move, I was like desperately looking for videos like this, and perhaps there are more out there now, but at the time I couldn't really find as many as I had hoped. So I hope that this just adds to some videos that you can watch to help get ready if you're moving to England or if you're just going to visit. I hope you all enjoyed watching. Let me know down in the comments, you know, if you're moving to England, if there's anything else you've thought of that you think should be on the list. Let me know if any of the things I mentioned were something you would not have thought of or you didn't know and it helped you out. I'd love to hear that. Please like this video if you enjoyed watching. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this, or if you want to see book-related videos or K-pop unboxings. I will be back with another new video soon. Have a good rest of your week, everyone. Bye!